Morning, everybody. 8:15 a.m. It is May 13th. Welcome to my channel. Yesterday, finally got the weakness in the tech and semiconductors. However, that was an opportunity to buy, apparently. So, Jensen Huang has joined Trump to the visit to China. I guess the market's like that. Crude is still hovering around just below $102 a barrel. You have AMD, Nvidia up. Semis are back up 2% today. It's friggin' nuts. Qualcomm was down 10% yesterday. It is now up 5%. Now, do we have a double top forming in our market? Possibly. Okay. That poor structure I talked about incessantly every day, well, it finally cleaned it up yesterday. And then it just got bought up. And unfortunately, off my pre-market scenario, worked right off the open, but I didn't really have a day trade to take advantage of that. And then, unfortunately, I had to set up a short one that I was ready to put a limit order on, but got fixated on. I wanted to see VWAP hit, and it went right literally to my limit order. That would be limit order, and it would have hit my target. Then I took a short that had pretty good excursion, but then hit my break even, followed by another attempt at a short that hit my stop, and then one more short. So it stunk. Also, prior in the beginning of the opening, right? I was like, oh my god, it tested the level I wanted in my scenario. And then I was eyeing a short again, and some news came out. I don't remember what it was. That literally, really, it literally just a big red candle came out, and I was just like, oh my. It's happened a bunch of times lately where I'm eyeing a setup, and then next thing you know, like news or something moved the market, and it just like foils it. Very annoying. But yesterday there was a little big divergence that I think that we'll get into later, where in retrospect, probably I should have tried to figure out how to go long yesterday, because there was a little red herring in the internals that were like in my face, showing me that whoa. And I'll get into that in a little bit. Okay. Without further ado, welcome to my channel. My name is Steven Gonzalez. I use market profile, volume profile to find structure in the markets, along with supply and demand, gamma exposure levels, the most traded price of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. That is my edge. So I come up with game plans. Okay. Now, once that market opens up, I use the market internals. Shows me what's moving markets off the open, along with my gamma flip points. Okay, that I give for free in my Discord. Those are pivot points in the markets, along with the weekly expected move. Lets me know, are the markets within their expected range? Are there breaching levels? That's also, I give that away for free on my Discord. Okay. Let's make a view of some ICT smart money, but basically my own proprietary system. All right. Now, every day there's divergences, and that's what makes this market a little tricky. All right. Yesterday, the market cap weight was significantly weaker than the equal weight. Okay. Basically, money was flowing out of tech, consumer discretionary, semis, but other parts of the market were getting money flows: healthcare, financials, industrials, communications. Okay. That's why the market, all it needed was some of those stocks to bottom out. Okay. Now, hopefully you join me every morning. Subscribe, set that alert. Give you the market story, the market news, the economic calendar, leaders and the laggards, technical analysis, and I always give you the long and short trade scenarios and ES and the NASDAQ futures at the end of the stream. Now, as always, if you want more in-depth coverage, you're going to join my Discord. That's Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link, and sign up. What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator. Okay. So we have PPI today at 8:30. So let's get right into the futures. Leader today, silver. Silver is up 2.10%. Ethereum up 0.90. Nasdaq's up over 0.5%. Gold up 0.25%. The dollar is up 0.23%. Russell's up 0.21%. ES up 0.12%. 30-year bonds are flat. Gold. Gold is, why did I say gold? Crude. 10-year yield's flat. All right, crude is flat. Dow is down 0.35. The VIX is down 0.44, which is nothing. Bitcoin is down 0.5%. So Bitcoin's just holding at that 80,000. Now we're starting to pull back a little bit here in these markets. All right, we're starting to pull back a little bit. We'll have to see what happens. Okay. Like I said, a week from today is Nvidia's earnings. I really think the markets might be waiting for Nvidia's earnings because then all the majors will be done. Mag 7 Plus. You can see Nvidia up 2%. Up 2%. It's crazy. It's up $5. AMD up 1.85. Tesla's up almost 1%. Boeing almost up 0.5%. Okay. Who's lagging today? Microsoft down over 0.5%. Meta's down. Playing around with that 600 level of Meta. It's down 0.65. JP Morgan down 0.66. And Netflix is your laggard down 0.79. Top sectors. Qualcomm had a worse day yesterday. Almost more than 10% drop. It's up 4.66% today. Oracle up 0.76. GE Vernova up 0.75. Okay. Any laggards here? We have a couple of staples here. Costco down 0.38. Exxon down 0.43. Visa down 0.46. United Healthcare down 0.63. Palantir 0.74. Walmart is your laggard down 0.81. Now what I'm seeing today is a little weakness in some software. Okay. Palantir, Microsoft, cybersecurity, Palo Alto, Salesforce, those are down. All right. Let's look at some granular list here. Micron, so semi, up 6%. Rocket Labs up 5.73. Wow. CoreWeave up 4.22. Iris Energy up 3.62. Intel, a semi, up 3.42. Western Digital, that's your hard drive, down up 2.84. Enphase, that's your solar. Vertiv, that's your cooling and your data center power. All right, Marvel, a semi. Those are all doing good. Who's down today? Oscar Health down 3.71. Melli, Mercado Libre down 0.19. There's not much laggards here. Okay, there's just not. Sectors. Semiconductors were up just 2% 2 seconds ago. Up 1.92. Technology up 1.28. Remember, largest market cap weighted sector in the market is technology. It's like 36% of the market cap. Freaking this, it's market goes where that goes. Remember, yesterday was weak. The market pulled back, right? The market was very weak at one point, and it just was dipped to buy, I guess. Now look at the rest of the market besides that. Not doing so hot this morning. Basic materials doesn't move markets, right? Energy doesn't move markets. Utilities doesn't move markets. Financials is the second largest market cap weighted sector, down over 0.5%. JP Morgan's down. Okay. So remember, where tech goes is where the market goes. All right. We have news coming out in 5 minutes. PPI. People did not care about CPI yesterday. Just didn't matter. All right. Let's go to economic calendar. All right. So let's look at this today. PPI. I gotta probably open this up. They don't ever give you the core here. So core year over year PPI Whoa. Wow. Expecting a point 0.5 increase. That's the core. That's a pretty big increase. Previous was 3.8. We're expecting 4.3. Okay, that's core. Now headline is 4.9 expected. Last was 4. So you're expecting a pretty significant rise today. Okay, you do have 30-year bond auction at 1 p.m. So you might see a little movement in that 30-year bond auction. Got crude inventories at 10:30. Okay, you can see the 30-year mortgage rate came out, pretty much barely went down. 10-year yield continues to be on a little bit of a rise. Okay, that is coming out soon. Okay, now let's look at something just dropped here. Maybe that explains the latest pullback. Who knows? Gulf states, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, or people say I think it's Qatar, and the UAE are to win NATO summit invites with the Iran war on agenda. All right. Let's look at Trump's schedule. May 13th. Let's see here. 8 o'clock, President participates in executive time. President participates in a greeting with the President of the People's Republic of China. 10 p.m. Okay. So Trump's in China. There was some Fed speak, I believe, today. Fed's Collins at 11:30. Fed Kashgari speaks. All right. Now let's look at some news. So here we go. People like Jensen Huang wasn't supposed to join them, and then he did. So NVIDIA CEO joins Trump for China trip, spurring hopes for the H200 deal. Okay. Walmart eliminates some roles to streamline operations amid digital push. U.S. SEC must argue for Twitter settlement before D.C. judge. SpaceX eyes global spaceports as Starship launch ambitions grow ahead of IPO. And the S&P 500 and Nasdaq futures rose, recovering from the previous session's losses as investors awaited key economic numbers and updates from U.S. President Donald Trump's China visit, even as hope for the lasting peace deal with Iran dimmed. Meanwhile, oil prices fell, snapping a three-session rally and offering markets some relief. From the U.S. economic front, producer prices data for April is due, and investors will be watching for signs of building input cost pressures. Also on the radar is commentary from Fed officials, including Susan Collins, Neil Kashkari, and Lori Logan. All right. Just want to see if there's any other news here. Alrighty. Now we have data coming out in a couple minutes. And we look at some breadth charts here while we wait for that, because we'll go back to the results here. So let's go over our little breadth readings here. Let's start with the 20-day moving average here. Let's go back to a year so we can see that better. All right, so that got a little improvement yesterday, even with that sell-off. Only 43% above the 20. The 50. 50%. Right in the middle. Okay, now one other thing I haven't done in a while. New highs minus new lows in the NYSE. This is okay. That's very middling as well. It's expected. New highs versus new lows is at -7. Wow, that's everything's middling. Everything is middling. All right. Now we go to the bullish percent index of the S&P 500. Oh, data came out. 54%. Pretty middling, right? Let's look at the data. Let's see the data. Market's pulling back right now. Let's see if it's more than what was expected. So core, whoa. Whoa. So we expected 4.3, folks. We got a 5.2. Wow. It was previously 4. That's pretty crazy. All right, and headline, whoa, 4.9 expected. We got 6. So the market's not liking this, right? That's pretty well over the expected. Wow. That's pretty. Poof. That's pretty nasty. I mean, that's pretty nasty. Even core. Okay. Wow. So PPI is moving the markets today. Now that's what producers are paying, right? So this is this is really, look at this right here. That's the last 4-hour candle. That's a big red candle. Look at the daily. All that buying. Look at that. Like I said, this is looking like a double top here. And this structure here can get taken away very easily. So this is already a couple demand zones gone. You can see we're testing this demand zone. But look at this most traded price and last week's highs. It's a double top, basically. And they usually call that M for murder. Okay. Oof. Very interesting. Now we're back inside last week's range. That's a pretty nasty bar. You just took away this structure here. This now is in this right here. This move can get taken away. Just like the move here got taken away. Just like in the Nasdaq, I said this is going to get taken away eventually. And look at that. Boom. Did its job yesterday. Pretty nasty stuff right here. Pretty nasty. So it just got rid of 2 demand zones. Wow. That is pretty nasty PPI. Okay. That is going to shake up things now. Okay. Is the market going to buy this dip again? Interesting. I don't know. Okay, let's go to, wow. This is pretty significant. Okay. Let's just look at futures real quick. So silver still up, 10-year yields up. All right, the VIX is up only slightly. Gold is flat. ES is flat. Bitcoin's down more. It was only down 0.5%. Now it's down 1%. Okay. So, interesting. All right, let's go on to internals. I'm going to show you what I was talking about yesterday. Saw it. And sometimes your brain just... This is your market internals recap. Okay. So, right here, as the market, I want you to notice something. So when we opened, right? Let me make this a little smaller here. Let me get this in correctly here. Okay, so when the market opened, right? Right here, retested that previous day's lows, or was that the highs? The lows, I'm sorry. Then it rolled over, right? But I want to just show you something. The equal weight, that white line, notice how that trended higher all day? Now look, even as this market was falling, and I was noticing this when I was live, I was like, look at the equal weight. Why? Financials, healthcare, even industrials was up at one point. Money was flowing into these sectors while discretionary and tech were driving lower. Now, these were down significantly more how it closed. Significantly. Semis were down. Okay? So, However, what I was talking about, this double bottom here, when this double bottom formed right here, look at the equal weight. It just started to power up. And then the market cap started to trend up. Now, is there really a setup beautiful here? Not really. The only thing you could have done is wait for this right here. You could have maybe waited for, like, let's say this little trend break to put some risk on. That's about all really you could have done there. And then it was just unbelievable. It just, the market broke the high day. Just amazing. Amazing rally. Okay, amazing. All right. So this was all negative now. This Nasdaq exchange, that's pretty negative. It was at negative 2,000 at one point. When that happens, all pops get sold. However, right here, it just, everybody started to flow in back into tech, like to tech again. Started to buy it. Just crazy. Good morning, Mark. So, insane markets. Insanity. The insanity continues, folks. Now, moving on to daily charts, okay? Now, every day there's divergences, and they can get pretty annoying. All right, because it makes the market like they're not together. The markets aren't moving all together. Nasdaq and ES are not moving together really that much. They'll catch up, but they're not really in unison, which makes it like, all right, tech's weak, but the rest of the market's not. Like, or it's, look at tech strong, but the rest of the market's not. That's how it's been working lately. Okay. Now RSI, like I said, you just don't short RSI, but look at how overbought this RSI is. Just keeps pinning here, right? And that's why I'm saying if you're an RSI trader, you're getting destroyed if you keep thinking this is going to be a short. It will one day. Okay. And look what we did yesterday. That like hot pink line is last Friday's close. So that's last week's close. And we were all the way down here. Still did not touch that 9 EMA daily. I mean, come on. And then just ripped. Ripped. Okay? Pretty crazy. Where are we now? 737.66. So we're right at last Friday's close, basically. And there's last week's highs. This is a pretty bearish bar. All right, we'll get into it. Let's look at the Nasdaq. ES. Look what happened here. We basically came up to this high, back underneath last week's highs. Now it's not a doji what's in the middle, but this is not the most bullish candle. Love you. Okay. All right. Not the most bullish. Didn't hit the 9 EMA daily here either. Okay. That PPI is not a good thing. Okay. I mean, now, just to clarify, we know crude is over $100 a barrel. Everybody sees it at the gas pump. Okay. We're back over a 102 right now. Now, this cannot stay in the hundreds. Okay. Now, the war is priced in. The Middle East tension is priced in. We are not caring about crude right now. You notice that? We're at $102 a barrel at all-time highs. Okay. However, if crude stays up, because we don't know when this deal is going to be made, if it stays up for a prolonged time, man, this candle is nasty. Okay. If it stays up for a prolonged time, it's going to affect everything. People's, like, companies' earnings. Okay. Travel, gas, like I just talked about earlier, plastics. All right, oil makes a lot of stuff. And that's an input cost for producers, right? Hence, we just saw monster PPI. Okay, this is a bearish candle. Okay, let's get over to the Qs. Those semis are giving it back big time right now. They were up 2%. Just look at this right now. They were up over 2% earlier. They're only up 0.75. You can take your fleece out of your jacket. All right, sorry about that. My daughter talking to me. All right, so let's see here because the semis are hot right now, but that's it. All right, let's go back over to the Qs. I just wanted to show you that. Qs finally had relative weakness yesterday. All right, there's Friday's close, last week's close. Okay, but you have kind of a hammer here, candle. Did not hit the 9 EMA daily. Did not hit the 9 EMA daily. Let's look at futures. Oh, it's also, where is it now? 709s. It's right here. Close to yesterday's highs. But that might be at the top. I don't know. Okay. Futures. Remember that daily demand I talked about? And that's also another thing I almost kept on talking about when I was live yesterday in my community. I was like, man, that daily demand's there. That daily demand's there. Even when we were dropping. But tech at this moment was weak. And then when you had that double bottom in the ES and the equal weight was rising and it came down, then it got bought, right? So let's see what we do here. The market's trying to catch a little bit of a bid. We'll have to see. Okay? Moving on. We're going to go to the hourlies now because there's a lot of stuff we need to talk about right here. Okay. Let's look at these hourlies together here. Let me get my marker out. And of course, we're at a key level. Okay. So here's your ES. Okay, so look. Double tops forming with this nasty news. Okay. And where are we? The most traded price of the week. Not a shocker. Not a shocker. Okay. Now look, the week to date anchored VWAP, that tracks the anchored VWAP for the week. We're above it still. All right, we've dropped below it yesterday. The anchored VWAP for the month, buyers are in control. Okay. So we just broke that little liquid level. That was equal lows, that got taken out. These equal lows, that got taken out. Now you have these equal lows. Okay. So we do have supply here now. We're going to put that on the chart. Do we have a 6 hour? Not sure if we do. It's definitely going to be at least, well, that 6 hour didn't finish yet. So I'm going to have to go to a 4. Even that didn't really, this candle didn't really finish yet. But I'm going to be comfortable putting that on there. So let's put on some supply here. This will be a 4 hour. Okay, so we're going to put a 4 hour supply on here. Let's get back to the 1 hour chart now. Okay, so we have our supply now. Okay, so there is supply up here. Going to be watching that. All right. We're in demand right now. We're at the most traded price of the week. Let's do our profile. And we'll start it from here. There we are. There's my most traded price. See how that box lines up with that? The most volume has been traded at the 74.20s. Another high volume node at the 73.94s. another high volume node at the 73.67s. That's where the most volume has been traded. Okay. Now, this structure, okay, so notice this structure here got taken away. You need to break the 7409s. Okay. Once you do that, this move here, you can see there's bullish for value gaps here, can all be taken back. Okay, notice how we came down, we symmetrically went up. That's not a surprise. That's how the markets work. Okay, so you need to work through this demand. Now the market's getting bought up a little bit here. Okay, if we go in further to like immediate price action here, let's go to like here. Let's see here. Okay, the most traded price 74.20, right? So, alrighty, let's see what shakes out. That's not good, that PPI. Okay, let's move on. And we're going to, so we're already in supply in the NASDAQ. All right, that was because yesterday it was relatively weaker. Still have a double top, a little bit of formation here. We can get rid of this. Okay, so we're in demand as well. Look what we're hitting, the week to date anchored VWAP. All right, so what do I want to put on here? Let's go to the 4 hour and probably go to a demand zone. That's not the one I'm looking at. That's not the best one. Let's look at a 3 hour. Okay. Maybe the 2 hour. Maybe I'll like that better. I like that a little better. So, let me just put that here. So now we have a little supply here. All right, so we got our supply. We're hitting our week to day anchored VWAP. Okay. So NASDAQ right now setting up for a better short than the ES structurally. Okay, because the most traded price is your 294s. All right there. And good, look, could not break that. This is also last week's highs, also back inside last week's range. Okay, in the ES, you're right at the level. Here, you're below it. Okay, look at that 4 hour bar. Oof. Okay. Now, again, market's efficient. What did it do? Well, look at this move up. It took it all back. Okay, now you got a little bit of heavier trading here. There's not as much poor structure in this area. So you could have a little bit of a tough time in this area. You need to work it off. So either you come back in here, retest this level, that's the short that takes this out, and then you probably do this if it happens. Okay. I'm seeing semis are back up 1%. Okay. So we'll have to see what happens here. Okay, let's put a little volume profile here. Let's start from right here. Actually, let's start from here. Now remember, my levels here usually when I do the most traded price of the week is based on the regular trading time hours, regular trading hours. This is 24 hours. So in 24 hours, 29284 is the high volume node, but you can see a lot of volume up here as well. Okay. And pockets of volume, the lower volume are in here, right? Because that's the quick movement. That's what makes sense. All right, let's move this along. Let's do it from here. Or actually, let's do it from here. Okay. So you're below the 24-hour most traded price and the regular chart, right? So, but then look at all the volume here. See that? Like I said, this is going to stop it at first. At first. Remember, markets don't move in straight lines, even though we want them to. Okay. So very interesting here. 294, below it. You're below the 24-hour most traded price, 29284s. move on. Let's go on to the market profile, volume profile now, and we'll map out some scenarios. Okay. All right, this is your market profile, volume profile. Oop. Look at this market. Wow. Pretty crazy. Okay. You were gapping up. You were gapping up. And not a small one. Okay. Let's break out this session. This is what I'm saying. See that most traded price of the week right there. Oof. Now we have supply. Okay. You can see that double top 74.54 is a resistance area that got rejected again. Now we know, right? We have this level. Okay. Does it give it up today? That PPI is pretty nasty. Is this a dip buy? I don't know. All right, but let's get into the scenarios in the ES long and short trade scenarios. Here we go. Okay, so the levels that we're going to concentrate on today is the most traded price of the week. That's your 74.20s. We have last week's highs that were underneath. We're back in last week's range, 74.27. Okay. And we have a bunch of poor structure now underneath the 74.10s that can get taken away. All right. So let's get into it. Okay, let's get into the long and short trade scenarios. So now, the one thing I'm not in love with but could work, all right, I'm going to put it on here, is you get support here, the 74.20s, which you're getting right now. Now you have a little bit of a poor structure here that could have buyers step in, but supply is here, right? And supply starts at 74.34 all the way up to 74.54. So if you come into this supply and get rejected, whoop, and you get that lower high, you're going to target 74.20. Then you're going to target the overnight low 74.10s. Okay. Now, if you wanted to hold a runner, this is where if tech is weak today, and say the rest of the market is, okay, yesterday's action is going to get all taken away, and you're going to hit yesterday's low 73.63. If it gets worse, you're going to go down to 73.48, which is the month-to-date anchored VWAP. Okay. Now, conservatively, you're going to want to wait for the 74.20s to be taken out. And you're going to want to wait for acceptance below 74.20. Okay, so if you take this demand out and break the 74.10s, and let's say you get support and you get back and retest the 74.20s. Well, if it retests, you're going to short 74.20 and also go for yesterday's lows, 73.63. Now, if tech is leading to the downside, this is a pretty good bet. Okay. As far as a long goes, don't get me wrong, we are in demand. Okay, and a sneaky little long could be this. Hit the 74.10s, get bought, push up, retest 74.20s, and let's just say, hey, market's liking it. Semis are firing, tech is firing early on. You can get long at 74.20, target 74.54. Okay. So that would look like this. Again, let me just use the right color. So drop to 74.10s, get bought, push up, retest 74.20s, go for overnight highs, 74.54s, which would be all-time highs. Don't get me wrong. This market, you cannot not judge the market. Okay? This is all I'm interested in, if I'm even interested in it. Okay? If I'm even interested in it. The only other play that I'd be like, okay, cool, would be some type of sell-off down to 73.63 and to see how I react here. If I have an anomaly like yesterday where market cap weight or equal weight is firing and the market, like let's say tech maybe is not that weak, maybe this can happen. You can get a reflexive long here. Okay. I am right now leaning a little bit to the shorter side today. To the short side. Okay. Let's move on to the NASDAQ. Okay. This looks a little more bearish to me because our major level, we're well under it, the 294s. Okay. So let's get into the long and short trade scenarios in the NASDAQ futures. All right. Let's break out the session. So we already rejected to 294s. We already are back inside last week's range. Last week's highs is 293.83. Okay. Two levels that we're going to look at. Is your 294. That's your most traded price of the rolling week. 293 is your most traded price of the 24-hour rolling week. So you have a barrier from 293 to 294. If the market keeps finding acceptance below these levels, that's a small time bearish lean. So think of 293 to 294 as a wall. As long as we accept below those prices, most likely the market's going to move lower. Okay, that's a wall. It's not going to be easy to push through that, especially since we tried and we failed. Okay. Now, there is a ton of stack demand where we're at. Right here. We're back. We were gapping up before. We're back inside yesterday's range. Okay. 50% retracement of yesterday's 29018. Okay. So, how do we play that? All right. Well, I'm going to lean short. Okay. So, we have a bearish news data came out, the PPI, right? So, you already get in. Let's see. Did this get taken out? This did get taken out. So anytime a demand zone gets breached, right, like this one, like it did, get rid of it. All right. So now, remember the 293, 294. So if, and it's a big possibility, you get bought off the open, okay, and you find yourself going into this supply zone, at 29347s to 29423s, okay? If you find yourself coming up to here and testing, especially if you've hit the 294s and get rejected, you wait for that lower high. You don't have to wait. You can wait for the lower high, short that, right? And what's going to happen is you're going to take care of these buyers, and you're going to your first target would probably be the 21915s. That's a support, the 29195s. All right. Now, you could have a little trouble right here. All right. But I think gravity would take over and you'd have to work your way down to the 29056s. If you break the 29056s, right, you're then in some poor structure and you could really start to fall. You really go down to the 289s, which is yesterday's most traded price. You break that, you're going down to yesterday's lows of 28741s. All right. Now, below that, do I know if that happens? I do not. You do have your month-to-date anchor view up at the 28607s. Okay. You do have a double demand, a supply up there. So I'm going to say this. This can play out in many ways. Okay. You could even, one more, you could even come up here, push and tap the overnight highs, reject, retest the 294s, also go short. Okay. And find the overnight low target 29056 and see if you can get all the way down to 28741s, yesterday's lows. Okay. That would work as well. Now, longs. I am not crazy about longs with this structure. Can it work? Sure. A short-term long can definitely work. You see, we came into this bullish FEG in the weekly day anchor view up, and we're getting bought up. But we know we have that wall of the 293 and the 294. So I'm really not into a long much here at all. Okay. One long that I'd be like, it would surprise me a little bit, is if we were to break through the 293 294s, break overnight highs, and then find acceptance above here. That would be a long if the market, and you go into all-time high territory. That's where I would go, okay, we just broke through the 293 and the 294s. That's a structural win for the bulls. Okay. However, long up in here, it just doesn't make sense to me. Okay. Now, you can get a momentary long in here if we pull back, right, to, like, say, yesterday's close, around the 29124s. Maybe you get a reflexive rally up into these 293s, 294s. And even that, I'm not ecstatic about. Okay, so I'm not very ecstatic about longs on NASDAQ. I'm just not. Okay, that's it for me, folks. Let me give you my overall market take. Okay, so is this a dip to buy? I don't know. Apparently, it's getting bought a little bit right now. A little bit. Okay, so how am I looking at this? We just had PPI that overshot, which we already thought was going to go higher, and overshot it by a mile. Producers are paying a lot more. That eventually, a lot of times, gets pushed onto the consumer. Okay? So that's the negative news that dropped us down. Now, could you say that that PPI data is now priced in if we move back up? Yes. Okay? Yes, it might. Now, overall breadth of the markets are middling. We know what's driving our markets: the semiconductors, some memory, technology. The rest of the market is really not that strong. So today, all you need to know is, do we accept price below 74.20 in the ES? If we do, we're most likely going to go lower. If we accept price above 74.20 in the ES, it's probably business as usual and the bulls have regained control. Okay? Now, will we have divergence again today? I don't know, but we've had it every day. Now, in the NASDAQ, the levels to watch. The most traded price of the 24-hour chart of the rolling week is 293. The most traded price of the rolling week in the regular trading hours is 294. That is a wall. Same thing I'm going to say here. If we can accept price below the 293, 294 area, markets should go lower today. If we can accept price above 294, then bulls regain control. bulls regain control. Okay? And remember, that's why market internals are very important, because I need to see what's driving us off the open. And we do have the classic possible double top, which is bearish pattern in the markets, in both markets. I like the structure better in the NASDAQ, believe it or not. Okay? Believe it or not, the structure in that is because we're already below the 293s and the 294s. And the ES is above 7420s. However, feel free to trade whatever instrument you want. All right? Now, that's my analysis today. Please smash that like button if you enjoyed that analysis. Okay? Now, I'll do this every morning. Hopefully you join me. Subscribe, set that alert, give you the market story, the economic calendar, the leaders and the laggards, technical analysis, and I just gave you the long and short trade scenarios in the ES and the NASDAQ futures. If you want more in-depth coverage, you're going to join my Discord, Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link, and sign up. What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator. Okay? Let me be your indicator. Now, we have our plans today, folks. All right, we have some negative news. Doesn't mean the markets fall. They fell, priced it in. Let's see if we get follow through. I don't know. Okay? Nasdaq should have a harder time going up today. But who knows what's going to come out of China with Trump? We don't know. We don't know. Okay? Now, everybody, no trade is a trade. And hopefully you follow your process if you have one. Everyone should have a process. Or trying to find one. Now, if I don't see you in my Discord, okay, I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Everybody, have a great day.